Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Time to Act webinar on climate. I am Géraldine Noé, Head of Environment at Business in the Community, Northern Ireland. Can you switch to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I'm Géraldine Noé. I'm delighted to have with me today Lea Fink, European lead at CDP Committed to Action. So we are here together for 45 minutes. So I hope you have a nice cup of tea with you and you enjoy the ride. Next slide, please. So here's what we're going to talk about today. I will be giving you an overview of the Climate Action Pledge and the Business Action on Climate campaign. So what's happening in Northern Ireland. We will then have a message from our NI Climate Champions. Then Lea will give us some insight about what's going on internationally and what corporate climate leadership looks like in 2020. And we'll finish with a Q&A. So if you have questions during the various presentations, please type them in the question box and we will address them at the end during the Q&A. So if that's okay with you, let's start. So we'll have a quick poll just to start and to understand where you are on your climate journey so far. So has your organization set targets to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions? Yes, we are working on it. No, or I don't know. I'll give you 30 seconds to answer. Okay, waiting on a few more votes. Okay, perfect. Can you show the results? So 58% yes, you already have set targets to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, and 21% you are working on it. So journey is already started for most of you, so that's great news. And 9% no, or you don't know at 11%. Okay, so that's great to know. That's great to know, something to build on. Okay. So I'm going to just give you a bit of an overview on what we are planning to do here in Northern Ireland. Just a foreword, I will be using the terms climate breakdown or climate crisis instead of climate change, because especially in this part of the world where it's not always, let's say, the warmest, climate change can sound pleasant, and that's very deceiving. So let me start with this image. This is how the climate breakdown feels sometimes, right? It feels like we are these two humans waiting for this giant tsunami to come and destroy us. And it feels like there's nothing we can do, neither to escape nor to prevent this giant wave to come. And so what we want to tell you today is that, well, yes, it's coming, of course. And no, there's no escape. We are stranded on this one planet. But actually, there is a lot we can do. A lot we can do to reduce this tsunami and turn it into, let's say, a manageable wave. And if we start to act now, ambitiously, and to actually take action, we could even ride this wave, we could surf it. And it won't disappear completely, that's for sure. But at least it will not destroy us. So we are here today to challenge you and to support you to tackle this tsunami and to act on the climate crisis. Next slide, please. Natasha is making the magic happen in the back scene. Okay, so we challenge you today to take action and to sign the Climate Action Pledge. So the Climate Action Pledge, when you sign it, you commit to reducing your emissions, your greenhouse gas emissions, either by 50% or by 30%, your choice, by 2030. That means your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. So scope 1 emissions are your direct emissions, those that come from the assets you own, buildings, fleet of vehicle. And scope 2 are the emissions that come from the energy, mostly the electricity you purchase. When you sign this pledge, you also commit to measuring and reducing your scope 3 emissions. So that's all the other emissions that happen and that are linked to your organization's activity. So the raw material you purchase, the services you purchase, up to the clients, your clients and your customers. When you sign the climate action pledge, you commit to reporting your greenhouse gas emissions every year until 2030 to business and the community. And you also commit to implementing a strategy to meet the target and to review your progress on an annual basis. So I'm going to address some of the concerns I can already hear in the conversations we've had around the pledge. So the first concern, or the first thing you might think is, oh no, not another pledge. You're right, this is another pledge. There are already plenty that exist nationally or internationally. But this is a local one. It's free, it's open to any organization in Northern Ireland, regardless of whether you are a BITC member or not, whether you're an SME or a global company, a multinational, regardless of the sector. So it's open really to any organization. And I would say that by signing this, it's your chance to shine on the local climate scene. Another concern that you might have is, I'm not so sure we can reach the target, so I don't want to commit to something and be blamed for it if I don't reach the target. Fully understand. Let me just say that this campaign is a positive one. What we want to do with this is to start a movement, and the reporting we will do annually will be aggregate. The idea is to say, us as a group of organizations acting on the climate crisis, we have contributed to reducing the emissions in Northern Ireland by this much. And the idea is not to point fingers and say, oh, look at them, they have not been doing their part. So it's more a movement that you can join, a positive thing. And we are here to support you every step of the way. And that is my third point. If you don't understand scope 2, if you don't measure your emissions, if you don't know which targets to choose or how to set a strategy, we are here to support you every step of the way. So reach out to us and we're here to support. Can we move to the next slide, please? So how do we plan to support you? So the first bit of support is climate literacy. So that means raising awareness on what climate breakdown is, what it means for an organization, what it means for a sector, what it means for a country, and what are the solutions that exist and what you can do in practical terms, always with the idea of inviting action. The second brick of support is practical support. So that's guidelines, toolkits, workshops, bespoke advisory on everything you might need. So this is where we need to have a dialogue. If you don't measure your emissions, if you measure your emissions, but I'm not sure how to set a strategy, or not sure how to measure your scope 3 emissions, or not sure how to involve your stakeholders, your employees, your suppliers, this is where this practical support will come. We have some advisory modules that are currently in development. Hopefully, they'll be coming very soon on carbon footprinting, so just how to measure your emissions. So this is coming, and this is where we need to have a dialogue with you just to understand how we can best support you. And the third brick of support, and that will come later in the campaign, is when you have reduced your emissions as much as possible, what do you do with what remains? So you can choose to offset those emissions, and there are amazing projects happening in Northern Ireland, be it tree planting or peatland restoration, that we are not going to create them, obviously, but we know they exist, so we want to link organizations that are interested to offset their emissions with those local carbon offsetting projects. And all of this will be available on our webpage, bitcni.org.uk/climate. So don't hesitate to go there. That's where you can reach out for help or for information. And we are just always happy to answer any question you might have. That's it for the no, sorry, next slide. I still have one more. So this is just to tell you we are not alone in this. This campaign is run in partnership with the other NI business organizations. So that's the Federation of Small Businesses, CBI, IOD, and NI Chamber. We also have a climate steering group of 8 organizations leading the way on the climate front in Northern Ireland. We are delighted to have them on board. They are the sponsors for the campaign, but they are also helping us to shape it and to steer it and to make it relevant for all businesses in Northern Ireland. These organizations are ABP Food Group, Danske Bank, NSERC, Northern Ireland Water, PowerNI, Sony, TransLink, and our audit partner, Deloitte. So we are just delighted to be working with them, and you will hear from them in a few seconds. And finally, we acknowledge that everything exists already, right? There's so much that exists, so much knowledge and expertise and just documents that exist internationally. So we want to tap into that, and we have the support for this campaign of the Science Based Targets Initiative and the Carbon Literacy Project. So that's it for the campaign and the pledge in a nutshell. Can we move to the next slide? We now have a word from our climate champions who will tell you who they are and why they want you to get involved.
Hello, I'm Chris Conway, Group Chief Executive of TransLink, the public transport operator for Northern Ireland. Climate change is the biggest threat we face over the coming years, and TransLink is committed to doing our bit to contribute to achieving net zero carbon as soon as possible.
Hi, my name is Chris Martin. I'm Head of Climate Risk and Strategy at Danske Bank. Climate change is undoubtedly the largest challenge that we're facing as individuals and organisations. And this is a real opportunity for Northern Ireland businesses to play their part in taking up climate action and working together to help solve the climate crisis.
George Mullen, Managing Director of ABP. Sustainability goes to the very heart of our business, and we have a long history of the environmental initiatives within our business and outside of our business as well.
My name is Adrian Curry. I'm the Managing Director for NSERC. NSERC is a company that manufactures glass bottles. We fill them and we distribute them on behalf of brand owners and retailers.
My name is Jo Aston and I'm the Managing Director of Sony, the electricity system operator in Northern Ireland. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we are responsible for planning and operating the electricity system and for running the energy market to make sure that your lights stay on.
My name is Alistair Jinks and I'm the Business Services Director for Northern Ireland Water. Here at Northern Ireland Water, we're proud to be a climate champion because just like so many of us in this small part of the world, we're enormously proud of our countryside, our flowers and our wildlife, and we want to make sure it's in great shape to hand on to the next generation.
Hello, my name's William Steele. I'm Director of Customer Solutions here at PowerNI. We've been a supporter of business in the community for many years now, and we're delighted to build upon this partnership by becoming an official champion in the Business Action on Climate campaign.
The aim of the campaign is to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and to create a supporting network for businesses to share ideas and to maximise delivery of our climate commitments.
COVID-19 has shown us that we need to build back greener and more responsibly, and public transport has a vital role to play in this. Moving to more sustainable, active travel options will help to transform Northern Ireland and is also a major business opportunity supporting economic growth in the region. This is vital if we are to leave a positive environmental legacy for future generations to come.
It's time for us all to play our part in the green recovery, and this campaign is a fantastic way for us to demonstrate to our communities, stakeholders, staff and customers that we've made a serious commitment to reducing our environmental impact.
We realise that we're now entering in the decade of delivery. Again, we take our responsibility very seriously here, and we recognise the UN's goals around sustainability and sustainable future.
So in encouraging other businesses to sign up to the Climate Action Plan, I would suggest that it's best summed up in one statement: the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. The initiative presents businesses across Northern Ireland with a unique opportunity to come together and really make a difference when we want to look at tackling climate change.
If your organisation's thinking of getting involved and signing the action pledge but isn't too sure whether to do that or not, all I would say is think about Sir David Attenborough's television programmes and look at how he's helped us to understand the huge damage we're doing to our climate. It's great that you should even think about getting involved. Grasp this opportunity. It's simply the right thing to do.
Climate is the big challenge. It is something that we can address together, and together as businesses in Northern Ireland, we can play our part in helping with the climate challenge. After all, to change everything, we need everyone.
So that was our climate champions. As you can see, they are really calling you to take action on this. We now have Lea Fink from CDP, who is going to give us a bit of global context and show us why this is really an international movement, and also tell us a bit about what corporate climate leadership looks like in 2020. So Lea, take it away.
Thanks so much, Géraldine, and hello everyone. And thanks for the invitation overall to speak a little bit about the global context for this need for corporate climate action generally, but specifically in 2020, and the role of ambitious emissions target setting moving up to COP26. Next slide, please. So what I will be spending the next 10 to 15 minutes on is to contextualize corporate climate leadership in 2020, and then give you a very brief overview of what we're doing in the Science Based Targets initiative globally and how that links to the business ambition for 1.5 degree campaign. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we've heard Géraldine's great introduction on the metaphor of the tsunami, and we do know, if we look at the scientific facts, that we're quite far off still, unfortunately, from making a wave out of this tsunami. So emissions are still rising globally, and we know if we do want to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement, which means limiting global warming to between 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels, we need to reach net zero emissions at the latest by 2050. To get there, we need to halve emissions by 2030. And we know now that to follow a 2 degree pathway is no longer enough at the latest since the launch of the IPCC special report on 1.5 degree in 2018. So what we see is that there is a gap between where we're standing now and where we need to be. And I think we all know that the private sector globally and nationally and regionally has a gigantic role to play in closing this gap. And it might feel very overwhelming. And this is, I think, also why we have the chance today to speak about the role of an ambitious target and how that can help you to take on this responsibility and contextualize it within your business to do your share and be prepared without being overwhelmed, and really working with a clear pathway that should really help you with decision making. Next slide, please. Overall, we at CDP, that some of you might be familiar with, we work with companies on corporate transparency. And for us, transparency, so measuring emissions and publicly reporting them, is the fundament for all action. We need to, all businesses need to be transparent about emissions and also their progress, so that collaboration is possible, and that your stakeholders can assess where you stand. And the next step is then, of course, and these things can happen all at the same time or after each other, but we really see this as a journey. And companies might be at very different stages, but we do want to encourage everyone to move along this ladder here from disclosure to awareness to the concrete management of very company-specific risks, but also opportunities that might arise from the transition to a zero carbon economy. And then also all sorts of benefits that come from stepping up as a leader, regionally or globally. Next slide, please. And this business case of taking an ambitious leadership commitment, such as the climate action pledge or setting science-based targets generally, is varying a lot among different sectors and even regions within the world. But we are able to group them if we also look and speak to the many companies that have stepped up as leaders already. And we can see that they can be grouped into let's say company internal and more external benefits. And it really starts internally. It starts with people within a company. And this is really where you can and should make use of these frameworks and support options that are available, frameworks that help you to guide specific strategy making, to help guide the next steps, necessary investments, to get internal buy-in, all of these necessary things internally. So it really helps to commit to a target setting framework, to drive innovation internally and really identify the specific risks and opportunities. And then by acting on these targets, you get to be ahead of the curve, right? You can anticipate all sorts of regulatory, and I will speak a little bit about the UK context in a minute, but to anticipate regulatory market development and again, arising risks and opportunities for your company. And then of course, stepping up as a leader will increase your competitiveness in the space and really help your bottom line overall, as this is what will be expected from every business moving forward, as we can already see, especially in regions like Europe and North America. And then we get more to this, and of course there's some gray areas where we see both of these business cases, and again that varies from company to company. But when we get to the external benefits, you really, and this is again where transparency and reporting plays such a significant role, to effectively show your stakeholders that you are aware of the transformation needed, that you're taking the steps needed, and that you're making progress. And even if you're not that far yet, that you start the journey and that you have understood the necessity. And then the overall goal, so to say, is to earn recognition as a climate leader, understanding that not every company might be able to tap into that right away, and that's absolutely fine. Next slide, please. And this is, when we talk about these tools globally, this is really what the Science Based Targets Initiative is all about. 2020 actually marks the anniversary of this gigantic milestone that we've made in terms of climate action with the Paris Agreement coming into place in 2015, which was also the year when when we founded the Science Based Targets Initiative. And yeah, with the objective to give this tool to companies that I was just talking about. So to provide a robust framework for the corporate sector to align their emission reduction pathways with science, with what is needed in order to reach the Paris Agreement. So essentially enable them to set Paris-aligned climate targets. And we now have almost 1,000 companies that have formally joined the Science Based Targets Initiative, and out of these 467 that have approved science-based targets in place. Next slide, please. And yeah, since 2015, we have come a long way. We have seen a very steady increase across a very diverse range of regions globally, and of course sectors. And we've now also increasingly seen actors within heavy industry sectors stepping up, which is of course fantastic. Next slide, please. So very shortly, what are science-based targets? I already phrased it differently, but it all means the same. They are emission reduction targets aligned with what is necessary, according to most recent climate science, to reach the Paris Agreement, which means to keep global temperature increase within 1.5 degree and 2 degree. So we have these targets. They span over 5 to 15 years. So similar to the Climate Action Pledge, we have these are short to medium time frame targets. And for us, that is crucial to break down this challenge that every company, every sector, every country is facing into manageable parts, and to really enable you to translate this into specific business decisions. So we have this long-term vision, we have this long-term target to reach net zero emissions by 2050, but we want to break this down and also basically use this medium time frame targets as a quality assurance as well for you, but also for stakeholders to assess what you're doing, and as well for policymakers to get the confidence that companies are actually prepared for this transition. They're taking the necessary actions, and they need enabling policies as well to effectively move along that way. And again, annual disclosure on emissions for us is therefore very crucial, because it does effectively communicate to the public what a company is doing, but in aggregated figures as well, what a country is doing, what a region is doing, etc. Next slide, please. And this brings me to the Business Ambition for 1.5 degree, which is a campaign run by the Science Based Targets Initiative, the United Nations Global Compact, and the Women Business Coalition. So we do know now that we need to step up to 1.5 degrees. Next slide, please. So the IPCC report that I already mentioned, that was launched in 2018, tells us a very clear message that aiming for 2 degrees is no longer enough. Every half degree makes a world of difference, as we say, and to avoid the worst impacts of climate, we must step up our game, and we must unite behind what the science is telling us in this report. Next slide, please. Which is why in June 2019, we launched this campaign as a global call to action from United Nations leaders and businesses, calling companies to commit to align their businesses with a 1.5 degree future and set ambitious science-based targets. Next slide, please. Thank you. And we have seen that the uptake since then, so over the last 15 months, has been fantastic. We've now have almost 300 companies that have joined this call to action globally. In the UK, we have 30 companies that have joined and committed to set ambitious science-based targets and long-term net zero targets. Next slide, please. And we do need hundreds of more companies globally to join this movement. Companies generally join by signing a commitment letter, and through that as well joining the Science Based Targets Initiative and committing to follow our criteria and recommendations. And 2020 is a critical year. I already said, and I'm sure many of you are aware, that 5 years after the Paris Agreement, so theoretically until COP26, which was supposed to happen end of this year, is postponed due to the COVID crisis until to 2021. Nevertheless, national governments are asked to submit their updated national climate targets, so their so-called nationally determined contributions, NDCs, and we have that situation essentially within every company that signed the Paris Agreement. So also within the UK, that a new and hopefully very ambitious NDC needs to be submitted. And this campaign, or generally ambitious climate commitments from the corporate sector, play a very important role, as we know that the majority of emissions, of course, and lever to reduce emissions lay within the private sector. So we do need these voluntary commitments to boost even also regional governments, national governments' confidence to set these ambitious targets and show that this is feasible, and show that what companies need as well is planning security and an ambitious overall framework that enables a company as well to take the necessary investment decisions and move along this way. And in the UK, we have, of course, a very special situation this year as it's also the hosting country of the COP26, which is now taking place in 2021. So we're really looking for UK companies to step up, to commit to ambitious target setting, and commit to doing what is necessary and showing climate leadership to the UK government, which is specifically looking for leading companies to highlight as well, both towards the Paris anniversary this year and beyond towards COP26. And the net zero target, of course, that we have in the UK is a fantastic start. It gives a general direction of travel, but we also know that a lot of these building blocks, like a coal phase-out date, ICE phase-out date for new cars, energy efficiency requirements. Some things are being implemented right now, will have to be implemented, but we know that a lot is will still need to happen, but will happen to make this net zero target a reality, and it will also increasingly become a business reality. So to set ambitious emission reduction targets is the way to get ahead of the curve, to be prepared for these policy changes and regulations. At the same time, really harvest the potential leadership benefits that come with that. So we really would encourage you to sign the Climate Action Pledge, and also look at these global options for leadership ambition. And that is it from me. So thank you very much. I do have one more slide just with my contact detail if you do want to learn more about this. And once again, thanks for having me. And with that, I'm handing over to Géraldine.
Thank you, Lea, for this global insights. So I think it's really exciting to see that the movement, well, has already started, but is also gaining momentum, and to understand that 2020 is such a key year to take action is really inspiring. So just in a conclusion to this first part, before we move on to the Q&A, you will receive an email following this webinar with a link to the recording, a link to the slides, and a link to the various items that we have on our webpage available so far. So if you want to take action today, download inside the Climate Action Pledge. You can find resources to help you start your journey, and you can register your interest and stay in touch for upcoming events and training opportunities. All that is happening on our webpage. You will receive everything by email again in 1 or 2 days after this webinar. So I can see a lot of questions coming in the question panel. So I'm going to answer some of them. I think the first one I'm going to address is from Annie. Will your advisors perform the initial measurement for us, or is this something we must do from the toolkit? So I think there are two possible answers to that. The first one is if you just sign the pledge and measure and report your emissions as part of the reporting exercise every year, we will give you a template or a tool that is detailed enough and well made enough to support you to measure your emissions. It won't be just put your emissions in this box and that's it. It will be detailed enough so that you can have so that it supports you to measure your emissions properly. So that's the first answer, but you will be the ones doing that. And the second thing is, if you want, if you don't measure your emissions already, if you feel that you need a bit of help, we will have a carbon footprinting workshop where we will cover the different steps of the process and the methodology to do that. But in the end, you will be the ones measuring your emissions as well. It's just that you will have had some support to understand how that works and what you need to know and where you can find the relevant information. But in the end, we feel it's important that you are in charge of your own measurement. That being said, when we have the aggregate reporting at the end of the first year, we will have, so Deloitte is our audit partner, they will do a quick check of the various emissions reported. So it won't be a full audit, of course, but it will be checked for any discrepancies. So I hope that answers your question, Annie. Thank you for asking. A question from Jacqueline. Are you also going to hold a webinar covering the biodiversity emergency? So, of course, the biodiversity emergency is another emergency that is linked to climate. I think this is where we want to gauge the interest. We have a biodiversity work stream at Business in the Community NI. So we have a business and biodiversity charter. So we work on that topic a bit separately from the climate campaign. However, if we feel that it is of interest to have a webinar that links the two of them or just addresses the biodiversity emergency, of course we can do that. We had to support, so yes. I see another question from Jacqueline. We see, so I'm just going to shorten it a bit. So you are a leadership and executive coach, and you see a role to support your coaches to face emergencies, looking at purpose in one way. Do you see such a role for coaches too? So I see a role for everyone. That would be the quick answer. And I think especially if you coach top management at organizations, without strong top management will and leadership and knowledge of those issues, will go much more slowly on the way. So of course there is a role for you to yes, I think to support your coaches on their journey as well, and looking at purpose. There's many ways to look at this, so I think you know your job better than I do, but I do feel, of course, there is a role for everyone to play. This one would be for you, Lea, I think. If we sign the pledge, does this link to the, so it's for both of us. If we sign the pledge, does this link to the SBTI business ambition letter to commit to 1.5 degrees, or do we have to sign this separately? And if so, are the measurements and aggregates reporting the same, or do we have to produce two separate reports? Okay, so if you sign the pledge, you can be aligned with the SBTI business ambition with science-based targets, depending on the base year you choose, and depending on your type of organization. So these would be two separate things. Again, there is a cost involved with the science-based targets signing commitment, and the climate action pledge is free. And so you would still have to report to us your emissions. Lea, can you tell us maybe a bit more about how the reporting works for the SBTI?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, you already said a few of the important points. So we differentiate within the Science-Based Targets Initiative generally between SMEs with less than 500 employees and more. We have a simplified route to join the initiative for SMEs that join directly by signing a target setting letter, which is aligned with the reduction values of the climate action pledge. If you go for a 2018 baseline year, and then you can also choose between this 30% reduction, which is well below 2 degree aligned, and the 50% reduction, which is 1.5 degree aligned. And there is a cost for the target validation related to that, which is lower for SMEs, which is, I think it's $1,000 US. From the reporting perspective, we ask all, it's a requirement, if you have set your target, to publicly report your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And we do recommend companies, especially larger ones, to do that through CDP, as it's most comprehensive and standardized. It is, however, allowed to do that wherever a company finds that suitable, so also on the website, sustainability reports, etc. But it needs to be publicly available, it needs to be company specific, and it needs to cover all scopes. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you. We have a point here from Andy as well. Remember, the data is probably already reporting in the benchmarking survey. So that's the annual survey we run at BITC. Or if not, it can be used for the benchmarking survey if new to the process. So absolutely, we know that we already ask you every year to, I mean, the voluntary party, organizations, obviously, but we know we already ask you every year to report on environmental KPIs. So the idea is not to give you more work. We will align as much as possible between both in terms of agenda and in terms of format and how that feeds to one another. So thank you for pointing that, Andy. It's true that we don't want to give you more work. The idea is not to be a burden, but rather just to invite action. Maybe time for another question. I see there are some that we will not answer today, but we will follow up by email if that's okay with you. Just a last one, maybe. How frequent will training workshops be, and will there be an option for one-to-one support, for example, to discuss strategies put in place to reduce business emissions? So that's a question from Sophie. So the training workshops, how frequent will they be? I honestly don't have an answer yet. We are still putting those together. I hope we can have some kind of monthly event, be it a workshop or a training session or a climate literacy session, but hopefully we'll have something that happens monthly, starting soon before Christmas again, hopefully. And there will be, yes, there will be options for one-to-one support. So absolutely, that's what we want to do with the bespoke advisory sessions, which could be either a one-to-one, or if we feel that it's relevant to have 2 or 3 organizations that are the same size and same types of organization in the same room, then we will do it. But yes, absolutely, there will be one-to-one opportunities for one-to-one support. Just one final question from Kevin. SBTI requires scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Yes, the pledge only requires scope 1 and 2 only. Is this correct? So the pledge for now requires you to commit to a target for scopes 1 and 2. Absolutely, at the moment. And but you commit to measuring and reporting your scope 3 emissions. So to work towards setting a target eventually. I will add that this is the pledge for now. If in 2 or 3 years we see that something that there's room for more ambition and to set a scope 3 target, then we might change it. And also, if you want to set a target for scope 3 today, starting today, then yes, please, absolutely, we are very open to that, and we have some of our signatories already. So I forgot to say that we have 10 organizations signed up already to the pledge. Some of them have set up targets for themselves. Lea, do you want to give maybe just a quick reply on the SBTI and regarding scopes, scope 1, 2,
yes.
and 3?
Yeah, just to clarify, it's true that the standard SBT framework requires companies to set a scope 3 target if this is significant, which means if they make up more than 40% of overall emissions. Again, for SMEs, it's different. We have these pre-formulated targets that are roughly the same for scope 1 and 2 as in the Climate Action Pledge. And then we have a sentence that says companies commit to measure and reduce scope 3. So for SMEs, we also do not require a quantitative scope 3 target, only for companies with more than 500 employees. But you do commit to measuring and reducing. And we do as well what Géraldine says, we recommend to set a scope 3 target following our general recommendations, but it will not be validated, it will not be on the website, etc.
Perfect. Thank you, Lea. Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry for those questions that we haven't answered, but again, we'll follow up with an email, and we can see who has asked the question, so we will reply. Just before you go, we have a final poll for you. So this is more to understand if you are ready to take action, really. We won't share the results. Let me know, Natasha, if this is working. Perfect. Okay, do you feel you have enough information to sign the Climate Action Pledge? Yes, and we have already signed it. Yes, we're on it. Not yet, we still need to clarify some things, and no, this is not for us. Okay, just giving you a bit of time to look at this. Okay, perfect. I can see that some of you, like around 40%, still need to clarify some things. So please reach out and yes, we want this to be a campaign by businesses and for businesses, really. So this is not something that will be unrelated to your day-to-day business, and we are here to help. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Thank you, Lea, again for being here and for giving us some insight on the global movement. I hope you are all inspired to take action. And again, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.